wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
This is the Sunday Stoic Podcast. I'm Steve, coming to you from Central Ohio, and joining me again is my co-host, Dan.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Dan Monks. I live in Queens, New York City.
All right. And last week we talked about the Enchiridion number 1. So we can call it Chapter 1 or Book 1. These are the notes taken by Arrian, a student of Epictetus, who was a slave who became a philosopher over time and eventually influenced the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. And we're working through the Enchiridion or handbook. These are short, pithy, kind of distilled versions of his teachings that you can practically memorize or at least carry around with you in your pocket to give you guidance throughout your life. There's a lot of great advice in here. And last week we talked about the Enchiridion number 1, where we talked a little bit about what a lot of modern Stoics call the dichotomy of control, the fact that there are some things in your power and there are some things outside your power. And those things outside of our power are often called indifferents or externals. And he said if something's external to you, it's basically nothing to you, which sounds a little harsh. And Dan, did you want to elaborate a little bit on that before we go into today's reading?
Sure. To quickly review, the list of things that are not up to us are legion, whereas the list of things that are up to us is very short. What is up to us are opinions, judgments, desires, aversions, volition to act, and basically everything in our internal mental world. The things that are not up to us include everything else in the world, such as our health, property, reputation, family members, employment, and the list goes on ad infinitum. Everything that is not up to us is termed externals or indifference by the Stoics. They are called externals because they exist outside the confines of our minds, and they are called indifferent because they have no direct bearing on whether we are making progress toward virtue or sliding toward moral corruption.
Very professional, Dan. I like to think of it also in that, what we're pursuing is virtue, essentially, right? And all of these other externals could be used for good or bad, or so money, for example, is an external. I could use it to do great things, but you may not be aware of this, but sometimes if someone has a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily make them a good person, right?
And sometimes they use that money for bad purposes.
Exactly. But the idea coming from Socrates is that someone with virtue is essentially, if you're utilizing virtue, it's pretty much always good. We may be able to find some nuance there, but in general terms, virtue is good. It's something that can be used for good, etc.
Yeah, it's the only thing that's beneficial in every situation.
Right. So that brings us then to today's reading, this is an old translation because I don't like being sued by folks who are upset about copyright infringement. But this is an old translation, so we're going to read it, but then we'll break it down. So this is the Enchiridion, Chapter 2. Remember that desire demands the attainment of that which you are desirous, and aversion demands the avoidance of that to which you are averse. That he who fails of the object of his desires is disappointed, and he who incurs the object of his aversion is wretched. If, then, you shun only those undesirable things which you can control, you will never incur anything which you shun. But if you shun sickness, or death, or poverty, you will run the risk of wretchedness. Remove the habit of aversion, then, from all things that are not within our power, and apply it to the things undesirable which are within our power. But for the present, altogether restrain desire. For if you desire any of the things not within our power, you must necessarily be disappointed. and you are not yet secure of those which are within our power, and so are legitimate objects of desire. Where it is practically necessary for you to pursue or avoid anything, do even this with discretion and gentleness and moderation. All right, everyone, there's your lesson for the day. All right, so Epictetus is talking to us then about desire, wanting something, and aversion, which is wanting to avoid something. And how should we align our desires and our aversions to match with reality to allow us to live a flourishing life? So, Dan, do you want to lead the charge on this discussion?
I can start us off. I would say that basically, when you desire things that are not up to you, you risk being miserable if you fail to attain those things. And similarly, if you wish to avoid things that are not up to us, you fail to avoid them, and then you're going to be miserable also. So the trick is to shift the priority of our desires and aversions from things that are not up to us to things that are up to us. And those things that are interior to our minds. And when we attach our desire and aversion to things like health, death, poverty, whether you get that big promotion or whether others think well of you, you're ultimately bound to be miserable, because the vagaries of life mean that these things that are not up to us will either fail to materialize, or they will come and then inevitably be taken away from us. However, if you change your priority to making progress toward virtue and your aversion to moral corruption, you will be focusing on things that are up to you, and you'll be unstoppable.
You'll be invincible.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm a teacher, and I wish my students would listen to me and think that everything I say is awesome
and amazing.
And amazing. But that is an external wish. That is something that will never fully happen. Now, it may happen here or there in small increments, but it will never fully happen, and I can't control the room full of students. If I make it so that my happiness rests on them thinking that I'm awesome. So if my priority is that the students love everything I say and do, I'm going to be wretched, because I will never fully attain that. I've put my priorities on an external. I put them in the wrong place. I've aimed for something that is inachievable or unachievable, whichever is the correct English word there. Something that is not achievable. Now, if on the other hand, I rearrange my priorities and I say, I want to enter the classroom and to understand the material as well as I can, and to develop lab exercises that will help the students to learn it really well, I can focus on that. I can focus on developing those activities that I think will help them. I can focus on the things that I can do. Also, if I'm worried about a bad review from, let's say, my boss, if that's something that terrifies me, that's an aversion. And I can't control what they think of me. If I've done the best job I can do and they think I've done a bad job, well, what else could I do? If I know I could do something better, though, that is within my power. That's something I could work on. So we need to prioritize the things that are internal to us, the things that we can do, our actions and our attitudes and our thoughts. Those are the things we can work on to align them with this idea. Dan, do you have any thoughts on how to work on aligning these attitudes so that they become natural for you and not just something you read on a meme and move on from?
Well, Epictetus did give us some clues as a plan of action to develop it over time, which was to, curb your desires for anything first, and then later, and in the present, you're supposed to just work on your aversions and make sure that you're not averse to anything that's outside of your control, like being afraid of death and illness and unemployment or whatever the case may be.
It'd probably be wise to start with something a little less
stringent, less Yeah, death might not be the best place to start.
Let's not start with death or spiders or whatever, right? Maybe start something small, like, I don't know, the weather or something.
or being snubbed at work or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so he recommends for now, put aside desire. Try to put it aside and focus on working on your aversions, making sure that you're averse to being a bad person, that you're averse to lying, that you're averse to not being prepared for the tasks you're supposed to do at work, let's say. You're going to be averse to those things. But to try not to be averse to how other people treat you, to illness and all that, all those externals. And he recommends that for now, rather than having desire for the things you want, because Epictetus assumes you don't really know what you want yet. You're not a trained philosopher yet. So you need to be careful with those desires. So for now, just work on your impulses of action. Like, are you going to do this? Are you not going to do this? And don't worry about all the results of those actions. Don't be too attached to the results of those actions for now. Just do the best you can. Act logically with reason. And as you develop your philosophy, you can start worrying about your desires and understanding which desires are, as the Stoics would say, according to nature, and which desires are not according to nature. And then over time, you will have your desires and you'll have your aversions aligned with this philosophy we call Stoicism. So for now, listeners, remove your desires as much as you can. You still have to act in the world, so you can't remove your impulses to act or not act or to drive to work, to say hi to someone or whatever. But try not to be too attached to the outcomes. Because if you're too attached to the outcomes, like, I'm going to go into work, I'm going to teach a class. If I'm too attached to the idea that, and they have to like it, I'm going to teach and they have to like it. Oop, I've made an error. I've put too much emphasis on an outcome that's beyond my power. So be careful with your desires for now and focus on working on your aversions. You might do that through journaling, through meditation, by reading the Stoics and reflection. And over time, your aversions to externals will start to diminish, and you'll start to become that Stoic that Epictetus was always looking for. So, until next week, remember, shoot us an email, sundaystoic@gmail.com, and we'll be back to talk about the Enchiridion number 3 and perhaps other Stoic topics. I'm Steve. I'm here with Dan. And until then, Carpe Diem.
Seize the day.